Hi there, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sarah Hunstead. I'm a paediatric nurse, mum of two, and founder of CPR Kids. And I am joining you today from Gadigal land. I would love to know where you are viewing from, so please pop in the comments below where you're watching from. But today I am going to talk about some first aid tips and tricks and a few little hacks as well, particularly around giving kids medicine and things like that. Because I have quite a few years' experience as a paediatric nurse, and I've picked up a few things along the way, and especially with so many parents and carers and other nurses that I've worked with, and doctors too, who have got really, some things that just kind of make things a little bit easier, which is a good thing. And the other thing that I want you to do is also please pop in the comments below your first aid and health related tips and tricks that you use as well, because we could all learn from each other as well. So please do that. So the other thing I'd love you to do as well before we get into this is that if you think anybody will benefit from this information, please tag them in the comments below as well. Okay. So first of all, let's start with a couple of things to put in your first aid kit that I think are really, really necessary. The first one is this. So this is just a spray bottle that I happen to get from a large supermarket. I think it cost around $3 or $4. You can get them from any large hardware stores. And what it is, it's just a spray bottle that's empty. So obviously you're buying one that is clean and never been used, and definitely not using a spray bottle that has been, from another purpose, whether it's, household cleaner or something like that. Because what you're going to keep this for is up in your first aid kit, and this is your burn spray bottle. So if you or your child is burned, then often what we say is, we can pop them in the shower or pop their hand under a tap, for example. Remember, we're only cooling the burned area, not the unburned areas. So we cool the burn, not the baby. But often what children will tolerate a lot better is this. So, for example, I remember once when my daughter burnt her hand. She touched the heater. She was red, she screamed immediately. I ran over with her under my arm, straight over to the kitchen sink, popped her hand under the running tap, but you got to do it for a minimum of 20 minutes. That's a long time. So what I did is that I filled this up with just normal tap water, cool tap water. We sat on the couch. I had a towel on my lap. We put, whatever kid show was her favorite on the TV, and I sat there for 20 minutes constantly spraying. Needed to refill, of course, but constantly spraying this burn. And she tolerated that much better than being kind of stuck awkwardly with her hand under the sink. This is also particularly good for burns to the face, or other difficult areas where, you can't even imagine trying to shove your child's face under a running shower or anything like that. It'd be incredibly traumatic. So this is a really good thing to have in your first aid kit. So next time you go shopping, put one of these in the trolley. The only thing that it is used for is for cooling burns. Make sure that it has a label on it that says first aid kit for burns only, so nobody accidentally mistakes it, and it lives with your first aid kit. So that's one thing. Another thing that I really recommend that you keep in your car is vomit bags. Okay. Now this is just a tip. I think these things are magnificent. The reason why, because they have a firm outside and you can very easily catch much better. Okay. I've used, I remember my child spewed in the car not so long ago. I'd used up all of these and didn't realize because we have a child who has a lot of car sickness. And so I got the dog poo bags out. Now, can I just say, raise your hand if you've the last thing that you reach for, you grab the dog poo bag. But the dog poo bag, it's not so good. It's a bit flimsy. The opening isn't as wide. So that's why if you've got a kid who spews in the car all the time, have these available. I think they are a very, very good resource. You can pick them up from your chemist. Okay. So vom bags are fantastic. There are loads of different brands out there, but it's just something with a firm outside that they can spew into. Okay. So please go for one of those as well. All right. What else for your first aid kit? Next If you are in a tick area, so I'm coming to you from Australia, from the eastern coast, so ticks are certainly all down the east coast. One thing I want you to purchase for your first aid kit is an ether containing spray, because with ticks, the guidelines according to the Australian Society of Clinical Immunology and Allergy, so ASCIA, who are the peak body when it comes to that, they would like us not to be tweezing ticks out, because there is a much higher incidence of tick and mammalian meat allergy. I've done a whole Facebook Live on that. Go back and watch it. Just go to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel and you will find it in there. But the guidelines say in Australia, we need to freeze, don't squeeze. So we freeze the ticks off with an ether containing spray. So, okay, so that's what I want you to pop into your first aid kit. Go to the Tiara website. I will pop the link down below. There is a brilliant video on how to freeze off ticks. Okay, so I will pop that in the link below. But if you're in a tick area, or you go bushwalking regularly, or you're going on holidays, make sure one of these goes into the first aid kit. Really, really important. So tick spray. All right. What else should go into your first aid kit? Now, I don't have one with me today because I actually do keep one at home. It's not with me here in the CPR Kids office. The other thing that I really think you should put in your first aid kit is a red face washer. Why? Because if you or you have a child who really is not good with the sight of blood, a red face washer can help disguise that. And so if they have a bleeding nose, or if they have fallen and they've bumped their heads and they've got a cut there and you need to put some firm, direct pressure, you can use that and it helps disguise the colour of the blood, which for those of us who can be particularly squeamish about that, it's a really good way to do that, particularly if you've got a kid who freaks out at the sight of blood, where they just need to see one drop of it and, they feel like their whole arm's been chopped off. It really helps for those anxious kids who have that fear of blood. And also that, if you have a neurodiverse child who does not like the sight of blood either, that could help too. So it's just a simple thing. You can just buy from, your local towel retailer or whatever. A dark red rather than a bright red is a better idea. But it's a really good thing, particularly if you have a child who has frequent nosebleeds, who does not like the sight of blood, then that's something, buy a few of them. Okay, so a red face washer. Now, what else? Let's have a look. One more thing on the first aid kits before we move on to giving medicine tips and tricks. Now, one of these. This is a pressure bandage. And you notice these squares, or rectangles, I should say. And when I pull it, it goes into squares. If you live in a funnel web or a snake area here in Australia, if you've got those guys in your backyard, or if you're going bushwalking, or, this is also relevant for blue-ringed octopus and cone snail envenomation as well. So this is what you want to put on, a pressure immobilization bandage. And you can use just a normal heavyweight bandage that you'd use to strap an ankle or something like that. That's fine. But this has got this inbuilt hack where you know that you are wrapping it in the correct pressure. You can see I'm going around my arm here when the rectangles turn into squares. So this is this particular one, but there are lots of other ones on the market. Just read the instructions. You can buy these from your local chemist. So if you are in a tick area, goodness, I'm thinking ticks again. If you are in a snake or funnel web area, or, if, a cone snail or blue-ringed octopus bite, it could be an issue, then make sure that you've got some of these in your first aid kit. Okay, so let's move on to eye drops. Okay, eye drops in kids. Oh, it's awful. If your child, for example, might have a conjunctivitis, or they may need drops for other reason, certainly you can use, your doctor may prescribe a cream Okay, so obviously the important things when doing this is that we're not touching the tip of the bottle or the cream tube to the eye at all. That's really, really important. Definitely the cream's easier to apply. We can just pull down the lid and pop that cream in, and then they blink and the cream is, across. One thing that's really important is that you tell your child what you are doing and that it may affect their vision for a little while. Because I've certainly popped the cream in children's eyes and they have freaked out, rightly so, because they think their vision is permanently blurry, that medicine has stopped them from being able to see. So it's really, really important that we explain what we are going to do. So telling them, okay, we're going to pop some cream in your eye or some drops in your eye. If they do sting, then don't lie. Say it might sting for a second. If they're not stingy ones, then say, well, no, it's not going to sting. But it may make you not see properly just for a little bit. It'll get better. You'll be able to see okay again. That's really, really important. Okay. So making sure that they know what's coming, that they need to hold still, and so on. So one of the really good ways of being able to apply, drops to a baby or a child, okay, is holding them, a baby in particular, in your arms. I'll just adjust the screen. So you've got one arm tucked behind you. So that's around there. You've got their other arm in your hand and their head is wedged against you. So it's a nice cuddle, okay? But they're immobilized. If there's two people with you, then somebody, may want to give them a big stretch up to the stars and have their arms above their head so they can't move their arms around. You can also lay down on the floor, sit down on the floor with them between your legs and do that stretch to the stars with their arms above their heads. But for a smaller child, this is a good way of doing it. And what we're going to do is, rather than try and pry their eye open, if they will tolerate you opening their eye and you can drop it in, great, but it's unlikely. What we can do is we can, with their eyes, even if their eyes are tightly shut, we can then hold them and drop the amount required into the corner of their eye while their eye is shut. And then eventually they're going to open their eye. They're going to open and they're going to blink. And what this will do is this will then disperse the medication throughout their eye. And so, obviously there'll be a bit of wastage. There can be. It's not the most efficient way of doing it, but if it's the only way of getting that in, then that's what you're going to do. Okay. So that's a little hack for eye drops. So holding them tightly. Remember, you can hold them the way I just was, or with their arms up to, twinkle, twinkle, little star. So make a game of it, okay? And then being able to pop that in the corner of their eye, and then they will blink, okay? They're not going to keep their eyes shut forever, and that will disperse the medication, okay? So that's a little trick on giving eye drops. If anybody out there has got some other hacks on how to give eye drops, I'd love to know, because there are a lot of parents and carers out there who have to do this multiple times a day, long term. And so I'd love to know from your experience what you do. So let's talk about other types of medicine, okay? So I have a child who is on long-term medication and it tastes disgusting. Like, I've even tasted it. It is gross. It is like, it's gag worthy. The first time I gave it to her, she involuntarily just vomited it straight back up again because it was so foul. So for all those parents and carers out there, I get it. I understand how incredibly tricky it can be to give medicine and have it spat back at you multiple times. And I'm a pediatric nurse and I take no prisoners. Like, I'm always, always informing them what's going on, but medicine is not negotiable. If you have to have medicine, you have to have medicine. But the taking the medicine is not a choice, but how they take it can be a choice, because often it's the unknown and the loss of control that causes a lot of issues when giving kids, particularly toddlers, medicine. So now, first thing, always measure with a syringe. Okay, so really, really important. Like, you choose what type of syringe that you use, and because you might be able to give it on a spoon, but don't measure it on a spoon. Please use a syringe to measure it. Okay, you want that really nice, accurate medicine. Always double check that you've got the right child. So you're giving it to, the correct child in your family. You might have 6 kids and 3 of them are on medicine. Double check you've got the right child, you've got the right dose. So remember, kids of varying ages in your family, make sure that you are giving them the correct dose, okay? That you've got the right time as well, and that you've got the right route. So do they have to have it by mouth, or is it in, are they having eardrops? So those sorts of things. So making sure that you've got, especially the right dose, the right time, and the right kid. Really, really important. Okay. And so there are lots of medicine trackers out there that you can use. There's lots of apps to track when you're giving medicine. And I'd love you to post in the comments below what you use to keep track of your kids' medicine. We get lots of people telling us they write it up on the bathroom mirror, or they use an app that's got inbuilt alarms, all sorts. So please share in the comments below. But draw up your medicine so you've got the correct dose and you've got the correct medicine in your syringe, and then give them the choice. Do you want to have it on a spoon? Do you want to have it in the syringe? Do you want to have it in a cup? Okay, there's lots of different ways. I remember when my little one was much younger, all she wanted to do was push the medicine herself. She would kick and scream if it was me going in to go and give it to her. But if I did that and I said, okay, you do it, she would put it in her mouth and she'd just go like this and she'd swallow it, because that was just her. That was how she wanted it. I know other kids who absolutely will not take it off a syringe, but it's then squirted onto the spoon and they take it. Some other pediatric first aid companies have put out on Instagram some brilliant hacks, like sprinkling hundreds and thousands and things like that on there to make it look like unicorn poo, things like that. Some great tips. But we need to make sure that they understand that it's medicine, that it's not lollies, that they have to have it. It's not negotiable, but they can have some input. It might be negotiating, okay, would you like some water afterwards? In which cup? Do you want, after medicine, to get rid of the taste, is it a sip of juice? And certainly that's something in my house that was, juice was a treat. And so if you could have a mouthful of juice after your medicine, thumbs up. Or, is it you get to choose a sticker afterwards? So letting them have some choice is really, really important. And we've done a whole Facebook Live on giving medicine to kids. So I've really kind of shrunk it down into here. So please go and watch that Facebook Live specifically on giving medicine to kids. Okay. But there's just a few hacks. There's a lot more when it comes to that. So remember, honesty, choice. And one thing I will show you actually is a baby, to give medicine to a baby. One of them is that you can pop a dummy in. If they take a dummy, sliding the syringe around the side of the dummy, and as they're sucking, they'll swallow it. Another thing that you can do is give it mil at a time. So the syringe goes in down the side of the cheek towards the back, and you are literally doing like the tiniest little bit, like literally squeeze. That's it. Wait until they swallow. Squeeze. You might be there for ages, but if you've got a 2-year-old who hates medicine and you're putting that in one little bit at a time as they're crying and they're not storing it and they end up swallowing, and then you do the next one, you're not going to get the whole dose spat back at you, which is a good thing. Okay. You don't want that. And for little babies as well, they have a little reflex. So if you pop a little bit of medicine and then just blow on their face, they will and swallow. So it's a reflex that young babies have if you need to give them some medicine too. Okay, so there's a few little tips and tricks there. And I know what I want to talk to you about next is measuring temperature. Okay, because we often hear us talking about how when measuring temperature that it's not about the temperature, it's about your child as a whole. But often we do want to know what's the number, if it is a fever, because you need to report that to your doctor and so on. But remember, we're looking at your child as a whole, not just the number. We've got a whole Facebook Live and YouTube Live on that. Please go and watch that, okay, because that's got the information you need in it. So when it comes to measuring temperature, if you are looking for both cost-effective and accurate. So those two things together, a digital underarm thermometer is fantastic because the accuracy and the cost effectiveness, they should cost under $15 at the chemist, really. You know, so, but one hack that I absolutely love, particularly with young baby or 1-year-old, 2-year-olds around there, it's easier to take on a young baby because, they're not squirming around too much, but the older ones can get a bit cranky, is often when we pop that under the arm, and remember making sure that the clothes aren't caught up. We've got this arm tucked around behind us. We're having big cuddles like this. They might squeeze that arm through, or that arm comes up and they start to try and pull that out. Because remember, what's in front of them, they're going to remember. But if you just put it the other way, you just pop that in the back like that, holding that there, holding their arm down, okay? And you've got that other arm tucked around, and then you've got some distraction here. It's not in their face. They can still feel it, but it's not as much on their radar. And so coming in from behind like that will stop them pulling out the front. So that's just simply switch around to the back. That's a really good hack for measurement of temperature. Okay, so there we go. And just a couple of little things next. And then I reckon I just want you guys to go and pop in the comments. If you've got any questions, please do so. But otherwise, simply post down below, okay, about your tips and tricks as well. Because, there's lots. Now, one thing that we get asked all the time is, especially with toys, is how do you know if it's choking hazard? Well, number one, always look at the age recommendations. But how do you know if something could be a choking hazard for a child? It's basically anything that can fit through the inside of a toilet roll. So you might think, oh, that's probably too big for a child to choke on. It's pretty large, but in actual fact, it's not. It can actually fit straight through. So really anything that can fit through the inside of a toilet roll is a choking hazard on a kid, okay? So that's an important thing. So you can quickly test things like that. And last but not least, and remember, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just ones that we get asked about often, is disposal of button batteries. Now, button batteries we know are absolutely lethal to children. If a child ingests a button battery or inserts a button battery into their nose and so on, it can cause life-threatening damage within 2 hours, okay? So what happens is a chemical reaction happens and then burns. And it can cause catastrophic life-threatening bleeding. So keeping these out of reach is so important. A whole lot of new legislation is now around how these are sold, packaged, and are in toys, etc., or anything really. So that's fantastic. It's great news. It's a really good start. But we still need to change over the button batteries every now and again. So the first things first, as soon as you take out a button battery, okay, as soon as you take this out, it does not leave your hand. It does not sit on the bench. It doesn't do any of that, okay? You are going to be ready with your sticky tape, okay? And the first thing you're going to do is take out that old button battery from whatever device, whether it's your car keys or remote control or anything like that, and you are going to wrap it in sticky tape all over, okay? So we are wrapping that entire thing in tape. Makes it less of a choking hazard. And also we are then going to immediately dispose of this. So ideally it would be going into battery recycling, which is, it might be you put it straight into a jar with a closed lid that is up out of reach where your medication and your booze is, and then that goes off for battery recycling. If that is not an option where you are, then that needs to be disposed in an outside bin immediately. Then come back and take the new button battery out of the packet and put it into your device or whatever you're doing. So dispose of this first before actually changing over to the new button battery, okay? And the other thing as well with this is that if you do have toys or any devices really that contain button batteries, please regularly check them to make sure that they have a compartment that takes at least 2 maneuvers to open or is screwed down, and make sure it is secure. Make it a routine to actually get that done in your house, okay? And remembering as well that the legislation has changed about how any products with button batteries are sold. So that's a good thing, all right? Or, so a really good thing. So you can go to the product safety website to read more about that. So that's it for my hacks. There's a lot more, but we could be here talking for a long time. So I'll leave that for now. Please pop yours in the comments below. And thank you so much for joining me today. And I will be back tomorrow on the CPR Kids YouTube channel talking all about sparklers and burns. Okay, we'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.